Hello everyone, this is CyberEric with another gameplay overview video. This is for the game Moss Book 1. This is played on a PlayStation VR2, which I recently got, and I made an unboxing video for that. But I'm gonna go over the gameplay aspects of this Moss Book 1 game. I'll play Moss Book 2 later. But for now, please like and subscribe. It is appreciated. And let's get right to it with explaining this is a VR title. We don't know around the camera, it's gonna look weird. When you look at those blue orbs at the bottom, those are basically my hands using the actual physical controllers for the PlayStation VR2. So, as a VR title, basically you're going to be running around and controlling specific things with your hands. In this case, I'm using the controller to kind of grab this block, and I'm going over the tutorial here, but basically you see my hand, and you're basically going to grab the actual item, the actual block, and you're going to move it back. And physical interactions like this is gonna be what you're gonna be doing with this game. Otherwise, it's basically a very standard 3D platformer with a little bit of combat and a lot of puzzles. But again, this is a very charming game. Again, this little mouse creature, I'm gonna call him Moss because I don't actually know his real name. Very cute. But as you're gonna running around different levels, the camera, you're basically stuck. You can't move around the camera. Your face is the camera. You get to see the entire level from this particular point of view. And you get to move around different blocks and help Moss run around the map and unlock the next stage and so on and so on. For example, here I'm basically holding the water wheel here so he can get on. Then I'm holding it again with a controller while I'm also platforming at the same time. And that's some of the mechanics that you're going to be using. For example, because it's a VR title, you're also going to have like little puzzles and hidden things. So for example, here I'm looking at, in real time, I'm looking at this little pad to get to the scroll that I'm done highlighting here. So basically you're gonna take that path over there, but that's things where the game doesn't really tell you to go there, but you'll be able to see it. Here's the controls for case, so you can see it's a relatively simple game. You got an attack, evade button, a jump button, that's about it, and then a grab button for your actual physical hands moving around. And you're basically going to be exploring this world. It's a pretty charming world. You're going to have different areas. You're going to have forests, castles, deserts, etc. And there is a story on this game. I'm not going to go over it. It's a, kind of like a substitute for excuse for doing things. We're basically tracking a family member. And there's some cool interactions in VR. Like, for example, he'll ask you for a high five here. And you can actually literally physically give him a high five. Plus, you're running around the puzzles. You're gonna find different more and more complicated things, and not everything is just intuitively easy. For example, here Moss is literally shaking his head no, because he's basically telling me I can't fit there. And physically he can, but puzzle wise he can't, and if you screw up, he can go down, and you guys are gonna have to restart the map or the room that you're in. And when you get hurt or when you take damage from combat, for example, one of the ways that you can help Moss is basically by grabbing him and literally physically just lifting him up. So you're literally gonna grab him and physically with your hands lift him up, and then he basically says thank you there, and he greets you. So let's look at the combat. Combat is relatively pretty straightforward, very simple, where basically you're running around in a 3D space. Enemies will attack you, etc. I'll shoot you, and I'll show that a little bit in a second. And you have your basic melee attack for combat. And there's not much to it. There's no like jumping attacks. There's no combos. Straight up part of the puzzle. But they give you a little bit of combat to kind of counter the constant puzzles. For example, these enemies are shooting at me. So basically I'm taking Moss in the back here, hiding behind a corner, heal him. And I'm going to try to see if I can start taking these guys out. So I'm trying to climb up here. And I'm slowly trying to take them out. Right? And that's some of the basics of the combat, where you're going to be in a room, some enemies are going to pop up, and you're going to be able to fight them. One of the cool things that you can do is you can physically grab the enemies. For example, here, I'm actually physically taking my hands, grabbing the enemy, so that the Moss can attack them. I'm doing this all in real time. So you're grabbing them as you're using your sticks and controllers to move around. So basically, here I am, pushing the block down, moving the character up, jumping, then moving the character to the side, while at the same time, with the other hand, I'm grabbing onto that enemy so that he won't shoot Moss. And that's kind of the puzzles for why this is a pretty charming game. It's a pretty cool game. Pretty good example of what VR kind of brings differently to the table, because basically I'm doing physical grabbing of the enemy and I'm doing other things. So as you're exploring, you're gonna find different characters as well. You're gonna find different like allies, etc. People to talk to. Again, it's kind of an excuse to kind of do things. you will find a little bit of unlocks. It's not an RPG per se, but it's kind of like an action adventure. Think of it like Zelda, where you're gonna be able to find particular sometimes items that will help you in particular areas, or I won't call them dungeons, but for example here, I found this chest piece that when I have it equipped, when I get close to something, invisible blocks show up, and then I can basically do additional puzzles and platforming sections. You'll find different items as well, like for example, I'm finding here a key, which you will use later to unlock a door. And because again, this is a VR title, when the door opens, it doesn't just open, you physically have to hold the door and pull it. So again, cool little mechanics. Again, semi-linear game, but there's a portal system where you can actually go back to the hub. And there's really nothing to do back there unless like a couple of challenge rooms, etc., etc. But you're gonna find those throughout the game in terms of like little portals to go back and take a break. But again, for the most part, that's mostly it for Moss in terms of the gameplay. You're gonna be running around, find different puzzles. For example, here I'm grabbing an enemy and I'm using his mechanic, hit the enemy to shoot this little icon. And here I actually got stuck on the wall there. That's actually a glitch that I wanted to capture for this. But for example, you'll find small things like that, but for the most part the game works. And here I found this scroll, which is one of the secret items in the game. But for the most part, that's basically what you're going to be doing in Moss, and that's the gameplay overview for Moss Book 1. I'm assuming Book 2 is very similar, but if it's different, I will make a video of it as well. And here, for example, you're playing in VR, that deer just shows up. So my face literally lifted up to see him, and I'm still looking at him. So again, the VR kind of adds a little bit of immersion to it. But that's it for this video. I would like to thank everybody for watching. Please leave a comment if you have any questions in the game, and subscribe. It is appreciated. And as always, have a good one, everyone.